So I may end up pushing back on you a little bit with that. I thought there were definitely things that we escaped with, but I suppose we'll get to that. And the weather certainly played a factor in us in any struggles that both teams had. That there was certainly an element of, you and I actually spent some time on one of the recent games during a rainstorm. This one seemed just as if not worse, in what it's like to play in the rain. We talked about that, but I liked Fede in this game. Obviously, highly instrumental in Real Madrid's opening goal. I thought there were defensive issues tonight, and I don't know if that necessarily would have been fixed if Zidane went with 4-3-3 or even 3-5-2, as we saw with the chaos to end the game where he made his subs and went that route. But I liked Fede in principle. I liked it in theory. I think the one thing that Real Madrid struggled with defensively, and even, by the way, when Benzema scored the opening goal, I felt a little bit of relief that maybe that's what we needed, like a little bit of wind in our sails is what we needed, because I actually thought Barcelona were giving us problems. And what I mean by that specifically is there were runs being made in behind Casemiro, Kroos, and Modric in the first half, but also throughout this game. Mostly from Pedri and Dembele, we're just getting in behind the lines constantly. And every time Barcelona looked up, particularly Busquets, but obviously Messi can hit that pass easily too, there was a vertical outlet to hit behind our midfield, and that was almost always on, and I'm not sure how we didn't adjust to it. And I was surprised that we also fell into that with four midfielders with Fede. Although, it should be noted, Fede, as narrow as he can play, he wasn't a traditional right winger, but he also was out wide quite a bit. So in some ways, it was a little bit of a 4-3-3, just with a non-traditional winger on the right. So that's something that worried me throughout this game. I didn't think Real Madrid made great adjustments in the second half with it, and I thought Barcelona actually kept growing into this game. And as we saw, I don't think the XG is out yet at the time of this recording, but we'll have it at some point during this podcast. I'd be very curious to see what it was. And this was kind of just Real Madrid being pretty good in transition in the first half and having a lot of moments in the second half they couldn't capitalize on. But this was a story in the first half to me, Matt, of Barcelona having possession in Real Madrid's third. I think by the end of it, they had 60-something possession in the game, closer to 70. And having their chances, having good outlets to pick out. Real Madrid, many heroic defensive interventions late to make up for some of their loose defensive compactness, and just surgical transition offense from Vinicius, Benzema, and Fede in the first half, which is what essentially iced the game.
Yeah, and there were multiple phases to this first half, and you talked about how Messi and Pedri were finding a lot of space, especially in the half space just behind our midfield line. Even Frankie de Jong, his movement was really good. But I think that was mostly, for the most part, within the first 15 minutes. And actually, Real Madrid, before they scored the goal with Benzema, which was around the third minute, all before that, we were pressing pretty high. We weren't sitting deep that often like we were pretty much for the majority of the second half. For the majority of the first half. And that's when they were playing through us pretty easily. Like I noted, Barcelona they were able, even though we're basically doing a man-for-man press high up the pitch, especially even on their goal kicks. And Barcelona were playing through it, no problem. And that was, I think, on a previous podcast, Kiyan, you noted that you were more worried about Barcelona playing through our press than Liverpool, because Busquets, De Jong, this is something those guys can do, and they did exactly that. But after the goal, that's when we started to sit in very, very compact lines. We were either in a 5-3-2 with Fede as another fullback, or a 4-3-2-1, and we were just sitting really, really deep, just outside our box, very compact lines. And I think we still struggle a little bit with Pedri and Messi's movement and figuring out who should mark who. But then ultimately Zidane just said, okay, Lucas Vazquez, you mark Pedri. Fede, you just mark Alba, man for man. And so you saw actually oftentimes Lucas Vazquez could look like he was the center mid and Fede as the right back, because they were just man marking those two rather than passing them on or tracking their movement and switching if they needed to. Which I think, that was fine to kind of see out the half and work and make it work. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think that was just kind of like the difference. After once we scored, we just decided, okay, we'll sit deep and we're just gonna counter. We're gonna transition. It was so effective. It was unbelievable. Modric and Kroos like able to play those through balls, and Benzema hold it up and then find those two, and then Vinny just using that speed. Oh my God, it was so lethal.
I agree with the press. I think the press, like from the first minute, it was really effective. They forced Longley and give away in the third minute, and before that, they were able to win possession 2 times three times within the first 3 minutes, and then again in the fifth minute. And throughout the game, like you mentioned kind of it in more detail, but just their man-to-man press overall was pretty good in the first half, and they forced Ter Stegen into some really difficult passes and even giveaways. So I thought all that was good. And I do think like some of the criticism I will have of Real Madrid in the first half, I thought there were some good solutions and good fixes. And I do think there were some curveballs thrown at Zidane, obviously. 2 main ones. One is Lucas Vazquez getting injured. And the other one was the weather. It's like, Lucas brought out a good tweet, a good perspective at least. And I always like to have this perspective out there as like not the main explanation, but at least just a good perspective to have in our analysis. Is that like good for Real Madrid to just kind of see this out. I'm paraphrasing, but like this was gritty. You just needed to stick your feet in. I don't know what the expression quite is, but basically just grind it out and sink your teeth into it maybe, and just make sure you get out with a W. And we did, and maybe with some luck. And by the time Ilaix Moriba hits the crossbar in the 94th minute, literally the last virtual kick of the game before the referee blows the final whistle, my heart's still racing, by the way. Like I feel that while I'm talking very fast because like my heart's still racing from this game. By the time that Ilaix hits the crossbar in the last kick of the game, I was just like basically on the floor, like, what is going on? This is crazy. I'm amazed we escaped this. For some reason, I just kept thinking like Barcelona's going to find a way. They're going to find a way. But we stuck it out. And now that it's over, Matt, when you reflect on it, this is massive, a massive W. Like this puts us again into a very, very good position in the title race. Not only do you win this game, you put yourselves in a great position to keep going, but also the tiebreaker is comfortably in your hands against both Atleti and Barca. So this was just the fact that you just got away with a win here was amazing. I know I'm jumping the gun a little bit, but yeah. So maybe we can talk about the goal because it comes early enough. The first goal, Matt. Mm-hmm. I would like to hear